Hare Krishna, dear guests, dear devotees, we welcome you very warmly to our Sunday program in our Krishna Temple Zurich. So our Sunday program is as follows. We will now have a talk or a lecture till 5 o'clock. Afterwards, you can taste our Sunday feast. At 6:15 there will be a guided meditation. At 7 o'clock there will be a temple ceremony, and from 8 o'clock onwards till 9:30 there will be more kirtan or singing of mantras. For today's talk, we are very happy to invite here His Grace Jayananda Prabhu. He is coming from Sweden. Please welcome him with a big warm Haribol. Haribol! He's very expert, you will see, in yoga, and especially in synthesizing our traditional way of application of yoga with academics, because he holds a PhD in religious studies and also a degree in modern yoga. And he's an author of a book called Inner Yoga, and you see he's even a teacher. He has developed programs and he's training people to becoming a yoga teacher. And in this way you see his whole life, I think for more over 30 years he's in contact with yoga, and also therefore he's an expert also how to apply techniques of yoga in our Krishna conscious life and activities. So we are very happy that he is here, and happy to give him the mic. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hard to live up to the expectations now after the introduction. Anyway, welcome. Happy to discuss with you some ideas from Bhagavad Gita, yoga in general. Would you mind singing a song with me first? Everyone who doesn't agree, you can kind of block your ear a few minutes. No, just kidding.
Maybe you can also come a little forward.
Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Gopidana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Gopidana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Raya Radharanarandana Raya Radharanarandana Yashodanandana Raya Radharanarandana Raya Radharanarandana Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunjam Bihari Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunjam Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunjam Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you for joining. This class has a title, in fact, Spiritual Practice for Active People. So, what do I mean by that? Who is active? So, as most people would know, despite the fact that today the word yoga tends to be predominantly associated with physical exercise, but then if you go around and ask, like, what do you really think original yoga was all about? I think the idea about somebody living alone in a cave, sitting like this for many hours on a daily basis, year after year, would kind of emerge. That's a classic archetypical picture about what it means to be like a serious yogi. So when I teach yoga and do trainings, then I sometimes ask the question that, okay, if you are into this kind of spiritually serious yoga practice, then I would like you to consider the following question. When you are awake, consider your waking hours, whatever it is, 16 hours, 17 hours a day, then is it the fact that half of that time you are spending seated in doing meditation, or is it the fact that at least half of your time you are doing something else? So if at least half of your waking hours you are doing something other than sitting in meditation, then the topic of today's class would be relevant for you. It's definitely relevant for me. So an active person from yoga, traditional yoga point of view, means somebody who has a job, who has friends, who has hobbies, and who has a regular address. Okay, if you have any of those, then you are an active person from the traditional yoga point of view. So this is kind of introduction. Now I'm gonna read a verse from Bhagavad Gita. There's 2 chapters out of the 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita which particularly deal with how to do yoga alone in a cave. The more well-known chapter is number 6, but also chapter 8 quite much deals with how to do the lonely yoga. So in this chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita, then are many verses which are in fact describing how does it feel, how does it look, internal and external aspects about somebody who's really advanced in this lonely path of meditation. I'm going to read one of those verses and let's see, then we can discuss that a little bit. So 6.18 reads as follows. I'm going to read the Sanskrit and then the translation, and then we can explore the ideas. So Sanskrit reads as follows. Yada viniyatang chittam atmanyeva vatisthate nispriha sarvakamebhyo yukta ityuchyate tada, which means when the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to be well established in yoga. So it's saying like when one practices yoga, one disciplines the mental activities. Means, did you ever notice that your mind is elsewhere, including right now? It's known to happen. You try to concentrate on something, whatever it is, whether it's a spiritual practice or whether it's a TV program, interacting with a friend of yours, then you notice, my mind is elsewhere, then you bring it back. So this is what it's talking about, because the nature of the mind to go elsewhere, and we want to bring it into one particular place. Now when somebody is successful in this, like bring it back, it finally stays still, then one is well established in yoga. Now we have a description of this in the next verse. I'm not going to read the Sanskrit, just the translation. As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist whose mind is controlled remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. So what does this actually mean? You can imagine a flame, like a candle flame, and when the wind is blowing, then the flame is moving with the wind. Now when the wind stops, then you can consider the flame is practically speaking still. So similarly, the mind, as long as our desires and external impulses, the wind of our inner desires and external impulses blow the mind in different ways, it's like a flame which is just moving around. By yoga practice, the goal is to bring it into a state of stillness. But how on earth would that be possible? I think we can all recognize that sometimes our mind is just still and it's very nice. But then oftentimes it gets agitated and moving around, and it can take quite some effort to bring it into a state of stillness again. And at other times it seems like despite our best efforts, doesn't matter what we do, it's still, mind just has a crazy day today, and it seems like nothing works. So this is the background for this spiritual practice for active people. Active means we have active energy in our system, in the physical system, in the prana system, in the mental system. And because the active energy is there, it makes us move and it helps us to stay alive. So to an extent it's a very good thing. So my point here is not to criticize or take a negative view of having a lot of active energy. It's just that if the goal of yoga is to bring the mind into a total state of calmness, then does it mean that, okay, if that's the case, and I'm active and I'm busy, and by the way, I'm late already, and have to do 3 more things, and time is brief. So how is it possible then to bring yoga into such a life situation, which by the way I think today is a normal life situation. So I would like to discuss that a little bit. So starting about why to practice yoga at all. Now at this point I'm not discussing what kind of yoga, just yoga in general. One good reason would be that yoga is a method of bringing about happiness. And So I think all people would agree that it's a reasonable goal in human life to try to be happy. I mean, maybe we don't talk about it that much, but then go around and interview people that you have two options, to suffer or to be happy. Which do you choose? I have this kind of pills, like these pills bring happiness and these bring misery. Now you can choose one of these. So which one do you take? I suppose, I don't know, but I never tried this experiment, but I think most people would rather take the happiness pill. So then doesn't it make sense to try to figure out, like, it's not in the form of a pill, but how to bring it about rather more than less. So yoga is all about that. So I will start this by analyzing the general principle of bringing the mind into a state of happiness. So happiness means when the mind is peaceful. Now sometimes we may associate happiness by being active, but it's oftentimes the case that, okay, I want something which I don't presently have, and then I become active and mind becomes restless and anxious because it wants to get it. Let's say it's a meal, I'm hungry, so I get active. I may start associating the active feeling with the pleasure of getting the food, but it's only because I know I'm gonna get it. Imagine the other scenario where you know you're getting more and more hungry and there's no food around for some reason or another. Then the same feeling is miserable. So in fact, the active feeling of the mind when we are searching for something which we want, if we at all associate it with happiness, is because we have experienced before that we are gonna get it. But actually the moment of happiness is when you get what you want, and then the active energy kind of calms down. A piece of pizza, cappuccino, my favorite TV program, whatever it is, you get what you want and then the mind calms down for a moment, and then it activates again because then there's something else you need. So this is one way of becoming happy. You want something, you get active, you work for it, then you get it, and then the mind calms down and you experience what a relief, a moment of happiness. Now there's another scenario. So this is connected to the concept in yoga which is called raga. Now there's the other one which is called dvesha. Now dvesha means the mind gets active because it anticipates something miserable is going to happen. So let's say the weather is nice, but it's soon going to get bad. Now what can you do about it? I mean, you can go inside, you can take a flight into a different country, you can put on more clothes depending on what kind of miserable weather is coming. Maybe rain is coming, you have an umbrella, something like that. You can take precautions. Sometimes there's nothing we can do, and then we can just accept the misery and be miserable. But oftentimes, let's say something is coming and I want to prevent that, and then I take some precautions, I actively work to prevent the misery. Or let's say you are ill, maybe you have stomach ache, and then it finally ends. Maybe you take medicine, or then it just goes away naturally. And then you feel this moment of relief. Misery is over. So in both cases, mind calms down. In one case, it calms down when you get something which you desire. The other case is where something which is miserable finally ends. And mind calms down, but it doesn't last long. Then it gets agitated again. So yoga is kind of trying to figure out, is there a way of experiencing happiness all the time? And not only when I get something or when I get rid of something. And the answer tends to be that yes, it's possible. It's possible by practice. And there are two kinds of happiness which last long. And I'm going to introduce both of them. So happiness number one, which can be experienced by the practice, is yoga. When one learns the art of keeping the mind in a state of calmness, relative calm and stillness most of the time. So that's advanced. We just read a verse where the mind is like a flame in a windless place. The interesting thing is possible to learn the art of keeping the mind relatively peaceful even throughout the day in active life. That can be practiced. So that's one way of bringing more happiness into the life. But ultimately, the idea behind all systems of yoga is that the ultimate happiness, like huge dose of happiness, can be achieved only by going beyond the mind altogether. Now the idea is that there are two things. There's consciousness and the mind, and these are two different things. At the present moment they are glued together. Consciousness is so absorbed in whatever is going on in the mind that experientially feels like me and my mind, this is the same thing. But actually it's possible by advanced yoga practice to separate the consciousness from the mind. And the good news is that pure consciousness, stand-alone consciousness, is a unit of happiness. So happiness is kind of natural, and mind is in fact something which distracts us from our natural state of happiness. So that's the pursuit of self-realization, going beyond the mind, realizing the pure self, pure consciousness. That's self-realization. That can even be amplified into God realization, where one realizes, yes, and I have also relationship to the Supreme as part of the Supreme, which even amplifies it further. So in both cases, whether you are interested in having so-called normal happiness in the daily life, or the ultimate happiness of going beyond the normal and going to the transcendental, to the spiritual, in both cases it's somewhat important to learn how to deal with the mind, because oftentimes mind tends to be quite crazy. I heard one teacher said something like, comparing what's the nature of the mind is like it's like a crazy monkey who is drunk, bitten by a scorpion. Anyway, never seen anything like that, but maybe it illustrates something like. Indeed, Arjuna, our student here in Bhagavad Gita, he gives a little different kind of description about how he perceives the mind. He says, the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna. And to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind. Okay, how easy it is to control the wind? Yeah? Anyone who can control the wind? Did you know that Arjuna knew the art of controlling the wind? It's narrated in Mahabharata. Arjuna and his brothers were engaged in martial arts demonstration. And in that demonstration, Arjuna did the amazing thing. He loaded the arrows he was going to shoot with his bow with mantras, and one of the mantras was there to produce a hurricane. So shooting an arrow and people are just watching what's going to happen, and suddenly in the stage there's a whole hurricane which is just about to destroy everything in the next minute. So everyone is getting concerned. Now what Arjuna does, he takes the next arrow, loads it with mantra which produces earth. He shoots the arrow into the midst of the hurricane, and suddenly then there manifests a landmass and the hurricane stops. So Arjuna knew the art of stopping the wind. Now this may sound like fantastic. This can be applied in yoga practice, so I'm gonna explain to you now how. See, the theory of yoga says that the mind and prana, the energy within our system, often associated with breathing, but also responsible of, for instance, snapping fingers, sneezing, digestion, any transformation that is taking place in our body is due to prana. So prana is the energy that does all the transformation. Now prana is kind of almost like glued to the mind. So mind and prana are like two sides of one coin. When you have a coin and you take a look, one side, the other side, they are two different sides, but they are still interconnected because it's the same coin. Which means in our example, when prana moves, the mind will move as well. When prana comes down, the mind will calm down as well. Okay, so one of the central ideas in the physical yoga, Hatha yoga, is to figure out, because it's so difficult to calm down the mind, maybe there's a way of going through the back door by calming down the prana. And focusing on that, by the way, mind will be still as well. Okay. Now this can be utilized. I'm going to teach you an exercise, if you like. So this is totally voluntary, so please everyone do it anyway. So the idea is that our mind can experience anything that this focuses on. It just gets absorbed into the mind. So we may think earth, like solid ground, is something which we experience right now because we are awake. It's a physical sensation, right? You can just tap the floor to feel how it feels. Because when you are still, you don't really feel. So do some moving around to feel the ground underneath yourself, like that. Now, when you slow down the movement, now you start becoming a little more aware. There's in fact solid ground, but because I'm moving around, now I'm recognizing it's there. Whereas if I'm for a long time very still, the sensation kind of goes away. Okay? Now, consider the experience of being asleep in your bed. You don't really physically feel anything because your senses are off. You are dreaming. You are in your dream world. Have you ever dreamed about flying? Anyone?
Yes.
Yeah?
I do.
Many times?
Many times.
Okay. Is that all you experience? Anyone has dreams about diving in the water? Swimming?
Yes.
Yeah?
I have every day.
Yeah? Okay, good. So, what about Earth? Anyone ever experienced walking around in a dream? Never. My point is not now to make, this is not an academic study, like what are the people in Zurich dreaming about. The point is rather to demonstrate that we have all sorts of experiences in the dream which are quite real. One of those experiences is Earth, like we can experience solid ground despite the fact that our senses are off. Mind has that capacity, okay? So now, our physical sensation of experiencing the floor, our seat underneath us, we can utilize that if we can bring that into our mind. And now what happens if you bring the earth into the mind? Do you know what? It's at the same effect than Arjuna is shooting the arrow into the midst of the hurricane. Earth calms down the wind. Meaning, if you focus on the floor underneath your sitting bones right now, your mind will calm down. Don't take my word for it, but close your eyes and do an experiment with me. So, I'd like you to rest your hands anywhere where you comfortably can, like on your chair, on your legs, wherever you feel is a good place to place your hands. Main thing is your arms should be totally relaxed. Now I would like you to do one thing with your head, namely look into your heart with your eyes closed, turning your head just slightly, tiny little bit down, as if there's a magnet in your heart pulling your eyes towards itself, despite the fact that your eyes are closed. So having your chin pointing slightly down, that's enough. I don't want you to drop your head, but just tiny little bit. And now pull your jaw back so that you will feel your lower lip against your upper teeth. And that should not be aggressive, very gentle pulling in. Now this relaxes the mind already to some extent, and relax your face as well. And now bring your awareness to your legs, to the part which is supported, your feet, maybe. Wherever you touch the ground, bring your mind there. And from there start slowly moving your mind to the next place where you feel the ground. And instead of jumping around, let your mind just flow from one place to another slowly. It's like you are scanning the floor with your mind. Can you do that? tiny little movement may be helpful, but you can also do it in stillness, just paying attention how in different places your body is supported by the ground. And then you please bring the same awareness to your palms, which are resting wherever they are being supported. Your hands are supported and still, and you are feeling the ground, the support, whether it's your legs or the floor, chair, whatever it is. And then finally, now absorb the solid support of the floor, of your thighs, whatever is supporting your body, let it just get absorbed into your head. And now you bring your mind to the back side of your head. Not the front side, where we have active thinking, but to the back side, where we are listening and perceiving and absorbing things. And now bring the sensation of the earth into that place, into your head, into your mind. And you bring the mind to the back side of the head. And then you are just observing how the element earth fills your whole awareness. And now the mind suddenly becomes totally still, because earth has the capacity of stopping the wind. So you can open your eyes now if you like, or keep them closed if that's your preference. If you have a hard time falling asleep in the evening, you can try this when you are just about to go to sleep. Just bring the earth into your mind through any point where you are feeling supported. How was it? It's not super difficult, isn't it? It's okay. Anyone felt peaceful? Yeah. So bringing earth element into the mind is helpful. It kind of doesn't do the whole trick that we are trying to do in yoga, but it's a good place to start, to bring some calmness, and then we can introduce other elements. So now I thought I would teach you a process called Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga is introduced in the second chapter of Yoga Sutra, and it's for active people. Kriya Yoga is meant for those, you read the first chapter of Yoga Sutra, and you are reading all those descriptions about Samadhi and what to do if Samadhi gets interrupted, like this totally one-pointed mind. What if I'm not able to do it? Then there is a second chapter which is telling you can practice Kriya Yoga. The idea of Kriya Yoga is very simple. Imagine you are sitting in a car and you are driving like 120 kilometers in an hour on a highway, and then you notice suddenly, hey, I'm driving into the wrong direction. Now what do? My uncle, the brother of my father, he had special skills, so he was able to just pull on the handbrake and turn around within a few seconds and continue to the other direction. But this is the kind of, don't try this, please. It's a special case. What normal people do, and this is a kind of yoga for normal people, is you realize you are going to the wrong direction, then you find the next where you can take off, and you gradually slow down the speed, then you turn and then you move around, and then you change the direction, and then you can speed up again, right? So Kriya Yoga is like that. It's starting with the idea that, okay, I'm active, I'm busy, I have ambitions, I have a lot of active energy. That is not a problem. How can we use this energy to spiritualize it into a spiritual realization? Now Kriya Yoga has three components. One is called tapas. Tapas means austerity. And it's a practice of training the mind to be still in all kinds of circumstances. Pleasant circumstances, unpleasant circumstances. there's another practice which is called Svadhyaya. Now, Svadhyaya has two components. One is chanting mantras, and the other one is studying philosophy. So we are doing Svadhyaya right now. I'm speaking, you are listening. We are trying to figure out that what on earth is going on. So that's Svadhyaya. Then the third one is called Ishvara Pranidhana. So to put it on more like, I think, better known concept, at least in this building, is Bhakti Yoga. Ishvara means the supreme, and Pranidhana means dedication or surrender. So surrendering to God. Now all of these practices means recognizing I'm active, there's some active energy in my system, in my mind. Let me use it in a way which will bring peace rather than further agitation. So if you would be willing to make an experiment, I will give a short introduction to all the practices, and then you can decide what to do with it. How about that? After that you can say, I want my money back, but this was for free. So you need to figure out some other way of complaining. But it's quite nice. So let's try tapas first. This has to already sounds scary for those who know what it means. So basically it means the practice of keeping the mind calm while I'm experiencing discomfort, and the other part is experiencing comfort just by calming down the breath and mind by itself. So we're gonna do a couple of practices. The first practice is called Dur Mudra, and Dur means difficult. So this is going to be difficult, but it's up to you to decide how difficult you make it. So you don't want to do the experiment, then you can just fake it. But if you want to really experience it, then what you need to do is to have a long exhalation, exhale peacefully and a long, relax your face, while at the same time you start stretching your wrist. I don't want anyone to go to hospital for this, so how much do you stretch is like, you need to stretch just enough so that you feel it's uncomfortable. At the same time you need to have a long exhalation, and I'm gonna teach you how. But first try your wrists. How does it? Can you come to a point where it's like not really comfortable anymore? Yeah? Possible? Okay. Burning? Good. That's tapas. So, but we can torture ourselves in many different ways. That's not tapas. Tapas means you are doing that with a smile on your face. Let me use this brilliant opportunity to experience pain. Now this is strange, isn't it? When we experience pain, our nervous system freaks out. So now we are training our nervous system to calm down at the same time. This, if you want to develop the skill, you need to do it on a regular basis, but I'm gonna introduce this. You see, it's not a stretch to get a feeling of how it works. So the first step is to learn to have a peaceful and long exhalation, which is relaxing. So those of you who are familiar with horror movies, this kind of scenario is like, you hear it sound like yeah. So that's a means of slowing down the breath without any horror experience. All you relax the fingers, and then you just be totally peaceful about it and relaxed, and then it's quite nice because you have almost like an internal sound of ocean. Let's do it again. And next time do it closing your mouth in the middle of it, like this. You continue through your nose with the sound. And next time mouth closed all the way. Does that work? Anyone? Yeah, it's not a stretch, it's possible. So next we are going to combine this. Now you need to add, you breathe like this. Whenever you exhale, at the same time you start stretching your wrist slowly, increasing the sensation of discomfort, while at least internally you smile and focus your mind on the feeling of pain while you have a long exhalation. So let's try now. Inhale, exhale with the sound, have a tiny little smile on your face, and increase the stretch and focus on the sensation of pain. Have fun with it. Let's do this crazy thing again. Inhale, exhale, and focus on the pain. Bring your mind into it and smile at it. And let's do it one more time. Good. And then let's do the other side. The same thing, 3 times. Inhale. And then on exhalation you just increase the stretch, focus your mind on the feeling of discomfort while you smile at it. Do it one more time. Or in fact 2 more times at your own pace. Like that. Release now. Anyone broke any bones? Do we need to call an ambulance? No? Anyway, so this is one way, one principle. You can do this in many different ways. You can take a cold bath and just peaceful breath. Focus on what is going on. This is hard and I'm gonna smile at it. There are many different practices that you can apply, but this is simple. So teaching you the principle. Next I'm gonna teach you the other method of tapas. This is very nice compared to the previous one. This is like activating our internal capacity of feeling satisfaction because that's inherent in us. Would you like to try that? Please say yes. Yes. Otherwise I run out of things to say on this class. So this is called a Santosa Kriya. Santosa means satisfaction. And so there's a way to place the hands where for men you form a circle with your left hand, thumb and middle finger. For men it's the left hand, for women it's the right hand. And this is not a gender political statement. It's related to our internal prana system. So whatever is your position regarding this. So for the sake of this practice, so this is the left hand for men and right hand for women, thumb and middle finger. The other hand, then thumb and little finger are forming a circle. So for me, for men, it's the right hand, and for ladies, the left hand. And now you place them like this. The hand where you have the middle finger circle is at the level of the navel, palm up, and the hand where you have the little finger circle is at the level of the thigh, like this. Can you see this? And palms up, okay? And try to do it fairly relaxed. Don't be tense like this. We have enough of that outside of this room, so here, just relax. And now we are going to add peaceful exhalation, and I'm gonna teach you a mantra which brings about satisfaction. It's called Hari Haraye Namaha, and then just repeat these sacred words. Hari Haraye Namaha, Hari Haraye Namaha, Hari Haraye Namaha. And inhale now. Let's do 3 mantras on exhalation peacefully. Hari Haraye Namaha, Hari Haraye Namaha, Hari Haraye and relax now. And inhale. Hari Haraye Namaha, Hari Haraye Namaha, Hari Haraye Namaha. And relax and recite the mantra in your mind while you relax and while you inhale. Inhale now. Hari Haraye Namaha, Hari Haraye Namaha, Hari Haraye Namaha. Now everyone continue 1 more minute quietly. So you do it at your own pace, which means you just try to have such a comfortable and nice breath as you can while you internally recite this mantra in your mind. Let's try it 1 more minute. And relax your hands. So, I'm going to give you voluntary homework for if you are inspired to feel happiness and satisfaction without always first having to get something really expensive. This is cheap. Do this for 6 weeks every day for 3 minutes. 3 minutes doesn't sound much, but if you do it every day, see what happens. That's my suggestion for voluntary homework. Do the experiment. That's yoga is all about experimentation. It's a kind of internal science. Don't believe it, but please do the experiment and see what happens. Be open enough to perform the experiment. So, we have time to another experiment. So, if you would like to join me, I would like to teach you now Anjali Kriya, and this practice is a way of bringing together the 2 practices of mantra meditation and surrender to the Supreme, Isvara Pranidhana. So basically, if you learn this exercise, you will have covered 2/3 of Kriya Yoga. And then, again, then you can experiment with it. I suggest perform the experiment for 6 weeks in order to really see what is going to happen. So, it's a combination of hand mudra, which look like this. It's a particular way of breathing, particular mantra, and then particular internal attitude. There's a lot going on, but all of this can be learned in 9 minutes, which is exactly how much time we have to do this. Okay. So, first start with your sternum. There's a big bone here when you go down, where you feel it ends. The soft spot, that's your center for this practice. Then you internally go in a few centimeters from that point. Are we in the place? That's your breathing center, okay? And that's also the center of your devotional awareness. Now, when you breathe in, you kind of imagine, and not only imagine, you breathe from this point and then you expand into all directions. Let's take a couple of breaths from this point. When you inhale, you expand from the center to all directions. And when you exhale, you come back to the center. The center is called Hridaya. It can be translated as heart, but it's your spiritual heart, not your physical organ. So you breathe in and expand, and you breathe out, you come back. It's almost like I have this image in my mind, like imagining like a tiny little star which starts expanding, like a light emanating into all directions and then coming back like a cyclical fashion. Okay? Now we are going to add something. Ishvara Pranidhana, surrender to the Supreme. So when you breathe in, it expands. It's expansion, and then I'm kind of trying to connect to God outside of myself. The Supreme is present everywhere, and then from my heart I'm expanding, opening, inviting the Supreme to be present in my awareness. Now, when I exhale, directing the awareness back to the heart center, then it's like, now I'm connecting to the Supreme who is present within me. So inhalation expanding out, connecting to the Supreme outside, and exhalation coming back and connecting to the Supreme within. So let's take a couple of breaths with this idea. However you are familiar with thinking about the Supreme, Krishna, God, Allah, whatever it is, something greater than ourselves, connect to that outside and within. So now you inhale, expand towards the Supreme outside of yourself, and then you exhale, connecting to the Supreme in your heart. It's very simple but very profound. And then we bring in the hands. So you bring the hands like this in front of your chest, a relaxed way, and you inhale, you bring the arms up to connect to God outside of you, and exhale, you slowly bring your hands down in front of your chest and connect with the Supreme who is within you. Because God is everywhere, within and without. One of the great teachers of all time, Bhakti Yogis Prahlad, said, Hridaye Risingo, within the heart, Bahir Risingo, outside as well. And now we are going to add the sacred sound, and then we complete this. I'd actually like to teach you how to do it with Hare Krishna mantra, but I would say that's more advanced practice because it's a long mantra. So just for the sake of connecting it with the breath, we do with the shorter one, which is Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Are you all familiar with that one? If not, soon you are. So it's Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Like that. And we chant the mantra twice on exhalation, and then after that we relax and inhale, and once during that. So I will demonstrate you one round, and the second round you join me. So inhalation, mentally reciting the mantra, and exhale, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Relaxing and internally reciting the mantra. Join me now. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Relax. Inhale. Greet the Supreme outside of you, chanting the mantra mentally, and exhale. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. God is in your heart as well. Inhale, opening to the Supreme outside, and to the heart. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. One more time. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. upright position, your hands in front of your heart, normal breath. Now you can just internally recite the mantra without the hand movement. This is the next stage of the practice. So if you spend like this 5 to 10 minutes, but do it every day for 6 weeks, it will have an effect which you will be able to perceive. You can spend more time if you like. And since we have 2 more minutes, let's try with Hare Krishna mantra. So 1 mantra on exhalation, and then after that, during the relaxation and inhalation, 1 mantra. So join me. Inhale. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Relax internally, recite the mantra towards the Supreme outside of you. And back to the heart. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And one more time. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And then relax your hands. Now, those of you who have a regular meditation practice, this is where you might want to take your beads, if you like to chant with beads, or if you want to do a just quiet silent meditation in your mind, then you can just rest. But this is a way to start. This is channeling the active energy that we all have towards a state of stillness. Did you feel it? Getting more peaceful? Yeah, it works. So, I kind of have to end, but I would like to give you just a hint about how to apply this into the life. So this was about what you can do in your private time. All you need is 5 minutes a day, but then there is no upper limit. You can literally spend 1 or 2 hours a day if you like. How to apply then active energy in the life outside of your private practice time. So Bhagavad Gita chapters 3, 4 and 5 explain to you how you can apply active energy by applying the process of karma yoga in active life. Okay? 3, 4 and 5. That's how to practice in the field of karma yoga. Now, if you want to apply it in terms of bhakti yoga, then you should study the chapters 7, 9 and 10. They are explaining how to do bhakti yoga in daily life. If you want to understand what on earth is this all about, then you should study the chapters 13, 14, 15, 16 and 17. They give you the background theory. And if you want to connect all the dots, both the theory and practice, then chapters 2 and 18 will give you answers about how all of this fits together. You may have noticed I did not mention chapters 6, 8, 11 and 12. So 12 I missed. 12 is also related to Bhakti Yoga. That should be there. But 6 and 8 are about quiet, lonely Ashtanga Yoga, where you would preferably have a residence in the cave. So it's not under the heading of the topic of yoga for active people. Okay? So, thank you for your patient presence and doing the practices. And yes, that's it. Any questions, comments? Or maybe we are over time. Feel free to just say what happens next.
Any questions?
Questions, comments, counter arguments.
Hi, I get very weird dreams. Very weird dreams. You name it, like tsunami, earthquake, plane crash, seeing myself dying and accidents, every sort of bad dreams I get. So do you have any suggestion to calm my mind down. And it's not exactly like when I'm sad or something, then only I get this dream.
Yeah.
Maybe I had a nice day,
Yeah.
maybe I had a nice day at work and family, but when I go to sleep, you never know what's going to happen in dreams, and next day morning I'm super down. So any
Yeah.
suggestion to calm my unconscious mind? Maybe, I don't know, because
Yeah.
I have visited doctors, I have checked with many therapists, but they couldn't do anything with my dreams, at least.
Yeah. So once you have exhausted these options, then I have, I'm not a therapist, but I can give some suggestions which have been helpful for myself. One is the practice called Abhaya Kriya. It's a Kriya of fearlessness. And because it sounds to me like you're talking about dreams which are kind of scary to some extent. So you could do that practice for, normally I recommend 3 minutes a day before you go to sleep. But because it sounds like it's intense, you might consider doing more than that, like 5-10 minutes before you go to sleep. I will teach it to you. So, but first I want to give those tools that I have used, which have worked for me. There's a particular mantra, particular mudra, which are good for facing fears. Okay. The other one is again related to what to do before going to sleep. See, whatever we do before going to sleep influences the brain also during the sleep, and so there's no better way of feeding the brain with fearlessness than reading Shastra, sacred texts, before going to sleep. It's very powerful. It may take some time to kind of get to the habit of doing it, but you might consider reading Bhagavad Gita before you go to bed. It's beneficial in many other ways as well, but also it kind of, you will be processing some of it during your sleep time also. Okay. So that's another thing you might want to try. And then the third thing is, it's a little bit weird thing, but whatever we eat influences the mind, and consideration about particularly the evening meal. You may try out several things and notice like what kind of diet, but particularly light, vegetarian, non-violent diet, even if it's offered, that's even better. That does come in some form. That I have noticed it. Whatever I eat, I notice it in my dreams. So I'm not suggesting a particular diet. Sattvic diet would be a good place to start, but then also figure out, like, you can observe the connections. I ate this kind of meal and then I noticed this kind of dreams. But this is not the therapist speaking, this is a practitioner, sharing with another one. I tried out these ones, these worked. If you have tried out everything else, you might want to try out these ones as well.
Yes, I have tried everything else, so
yeah.
I need to.
And now I'm gonna teach Abhaya Kriya for those who want to learn it, because it works, besides bad dreams, it works with any kind of scary situation. So those who want to learn it, it takes just 1 minute. Yeah? You want to learn? Okay. So left hand is like this. This is same for ladies and gentlemen. Left hand palm up. Right hand like this. And then with peaceful, open eyes, you need to face your fears. So you are looking straight into whatever is coming. And this peaceful breath, and on exhalation you recite the mantra Narasimhaya Namaha, Narasimhaya Namaha. And I will demonstrate how to connect with the breaths, and then we do a couple of rounds together. So you inhale. Narasimhaya Namaha, Narasimhaya Namaha, Narasimhaya Namaha, Narasimhaya Namaha. Breathe in again. Narasimhaya Namaha, Narasimhaya Namaha, Narasimhaya Namaha, Narasimhaya Namaha. One more time. Narasinhaya namaha, Narasinhaya namaha, Narasinhaya namaha, Narasinhaya namaha. Like that. And then you would continue at least a few minutes and make it a habit. Don't expect results right away. They might come, it might take some weeks, but usually, like I said with the other practices, a good dose is to let me commit at least 6 weeks and